Hello and welcome to the Career Corner, where we answer your career cues. My name is Lukas Kauffman, and joining me today, folks, we have a very special guest. We are joined today by Mark Gregory to talk about college clubs and organizations and how they can benefit you post-grad. Mark, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to come here. Nice to see you and happy to be here.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you. So, Mark, before we jump into things, tell the people at home a little bit about yourself.
All right. So yeah, I'm Mark Gregory. I graduated Ithaca in 2022, and then I finished my master's program there in 2023. I majored in occupational therapy. I know we're going to talk about clubs, so I have a long laundry list of clubs I was a part of. I'm most known probably for IC Unbound. I danced with the club since sophomore year, so it was like, and even in grad year too. So 4 years of dancing there.
Amazing. So, speaking of clubs, what role do you think clubs play in a student's overall college experience?
Yeah. Oh, so that's a great one. Overall, I think for me at least, it made me more well-rounded. It kept me busy in a good way. Not only do I think that it made my schedule have consistency, but it kept me more social, especially because I had the beautiful pandemic happen, but we still had different ways we stayed engaged through clubs. Everyone had to adapt virtually, but even through that, it kept me with some form of routine. And as I said, I'm gonna really harp on that social aspect of it. Through that pandemic, it was really hard and easy to just become a recluse. But with clubs, it stayed very social. I had multiple clubs trying to meet virtually. So yeah.
So you mentioned that it can add a lot to your schedule and it can make you more busy, and that can be really good. It's obviously very helpful to be out and social and doing things outside of academics. How do you have any tips for how students can kind of manage their time between their course work and their clubs that they're interested in?
Well, for me, my main strategy was to communicate to everybody, not only my clubs, but my teachers. And my teachers were very understanding and they were even interested in them sometimes. Like I came up to one teacher and I was like, hey, this weekend, I have a performance for Unbound. Probably not going to get all my homework done that we have. And then she was like, that's all right. I'll go to the show with you. I was like, okay, cool. I'll see you there. But not only that, it's like whenever I had a lot of work going on, I just communicated with Unbound and was like, hey, this is what's going down. I can't do everything I need to do. But even, those things can become overwhelming. When everyone is on the same page that we have a lot going on, it's really easy, I think, to have people be in your corner at Ithaca because a lot of people understand that, they want you to get involved. Like, no one's gonna say, "Oh no." I mean, I shouldn't say no one's gonna say this, but I really hope no one would say that you shouldn't be doing your club because you have work to do, or you shouldn't be doing your work because you're at your club. I think that they should always be finding some way to marry them. And I think that you can always work those things in together. You just have to, not only communicate to the people who need to know, but also when you have that communication, it helps with you understanding yourself, what you want to prioritize here and there. And you get like a second, maybe third opinion of what you need to do. And it just makes things a lot easier when you have that communication.
Yeah. And while we're gonna stay on clubs at Ithaca in kind of the present time for a student, then we'll jump into the post grad experience. So staying on clubs at Ithaca while you're at Ithaca, how do you know what clubs to pick? Like how do you figure out what clubs there are, what you want to join, how many you join? Do you have
Yeah.
any tips on that?
I think a lot of people could relate to this. Going to the student org fair was overwhelming. I went there freshman year, before we even did like that much on campus, and I was just putting my name down for a bunch of different email lists. My email still has people emailing me trying to get me to go to different clubs. But the big thing that I really found helped me just narrow everything down was that social aspect of what clubs really like were there for me, like socially. What I mean by that is having people who were not only interested in having you as a member of the club, but they're interested in you as a person. For me, that started with my first club, running club. The first time I went to running club, the group was so welcoming. it was not just a group of people who wanted to get you out there and go run. It was a group of people who said, all right, we're gonna run and then we're gonna sit down, stretch, tell me about your life, tell me what you got going on. Oh, you want to go get lunch afterwards? Sure, let's go to the dining hall. It was awesome. And we had that community there. And I just want to shout out to the original running club founder, Megan Bayan. She's fantastic. And the community that was fostered there really kept me just coming back over and over. And when I had that, my friends from running club weren't just my friends at running club. I moved on to live with some of them in circles, and we became friends outside of the club, and we just became friends for life, really.
Amazing. So clubs while you're in college are integral to the college experience. You
Mhm.
know, you're you're doing so many social things. I know for me, this is kind of jumping more into the future of of what clubs can do for you. You know, in high school, I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars, and I put those on my college application,
Of
and I
course.
was using that to get in. So how can you use your clubs at college to then put on your resume and get jobs?
Oh yeah. Again, similarly as build up your resume in high school, doing the same thing in college. Um, when you move forward to that stage of applying for jobs, your resume should be strong, of course. That's what you've been here for college and high school. But I think the biggest thing that you can really do with those clubs and everything like that is talk through your experience to show and explain what you've done with that time. Because the resume can only say so much. When you have that first interview, something that I can say for me that really helped was it was a really simple phone interview. And the guy was like, so tell me about yourself. And one club that I was a part of, which was the ICOT DEI program, for that's a lot of acronyms. So it's a college occupational therapy, diversity, equity, and inclusion program. For those of you who don't know, I talked to who soon became my boss. I was telling him about how I really was passionate about DEI and also with an OT and how I wanted to move DEI not only from OT but to other aspects of my life. And then I talked to him about how like, oh, the experiences I gained here, I learned to teach people what DEI was. I learned to teach people how they can use it themselves. And then me and him just had this moment where he clicked and he was like, oh, you didn't just go there. You were a part of what DI could be in your community. Like you were making it better for people. And that's what I wanted to do. And it was clearly communicated. I think that's the most important thing you can do when you have that interview is not only communicate that you were part of the club, that you were truly changing the club and maybe even more like I try to do, change the outside of the club, make your club have reach. And that really shines you getting a job. And for me, it worked.
Yeah, and what kind of was that for an occupational therapy job? Was that a job in your field that you were interviewing for?
So yes, occupational therapy adjacent. It was working at I work currently in aftercare and enrichment at Springside Chestnut Hill Academy in my area. So working with kids, that's my main goal is I wanted to work with the little ones and see them grow and, explain, as I said, DEI, you can see that at such a young age is something that I'm really passionate about and they already understand it, but that's a whole separate conversation. Getting that job for working in aftercare, very adjacent to OT, working with young ones and seeing those two things, work together. It was seamless. And my boss saw it too.
Yeah. So obviously that organization that you were a part of was very relevant to your career and to this job that you're applying for. Can you still put a club or an organization on your resume if it's not necessarily related, or do you need to kind of pick and choose when that's going on that resume for that application?
Both things are true there. You can put things on that aren't relevant, but as I said, it's up to you to make it relevant. One thing that I talked about during my interview was I'm part of the running club. You know, some people might say, he's just a runner. Why is that relevant to helping kids? And then I explained that not only is it showing that I am physically capable, as like, I am not, part of the job description was being able to lift a small child if needed. And I was trying to explain that, not trying to explain, what I did explain was that not only can I lift a small child if needed? But in my past working with kids, kids run and they can run fast and far. And I was saying that, I have that capacity that if needed, I can catch up to the kid, just like different physical aspects. And this is just one example of many of how you can take a clever experience and twist it your own way, make it relevant. Um, of course, it may be harder with whatever your club is, but I think that, that is on you as someone applying to be creative. And that's that prep work that goes into it. Look at your experiences, look at the job requirements. That's a huge thing, is looking at those job requirements. Because at some points, if you know the job requirements, you should be able to write your story answering all of those questions. Easy. And clubs come to do that very well.
Yeah, amazing. So we've talked about how that club you were in got you the job. That's the job you're currently working in.
Yes.
Have there been any other instances where clubs you were a part of have contributed to your career moving forward?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it is making connections. If you couldn't tell, have harped on a lot about social connections. One thing, there's this, I'm not sure, I hope it's still a thing at Ithaca, but we have a Jumpstart.
Yes,
Um,
still a thing. Yeah.
awesome. But Jumpstart, it gave me the tool, not tools, let's say this, connections, as I talked about before. I worked at, oh man, it's this small farm up the road from Ithaca. I think it's a Montessori school, maybe, but there's lots of different community involvement and engagement and community service that I did there that gave me different connections to people, like went to the library, and through one thing led to another. And previously, for one of my field works in Ithaca, I worked at Dryden Elementary School. And when I wouldn't say that my working at Jumpstart got me that position, but when I made it to Dryden, someone there said, "Hey, don't I know you from somewhere?" And I was like, I was confused at first, but then we got to talking, and then it found out that one of the teachers who were at the elementary school just so happened to be someone who I did community service for at this Montessori school like 3 years ago before I came. And it's those chances. Of course, not everyone will be randomly having those coincidences, but those coincidences, like you won't have them unless you've had the opportunity to go out and get those experiences. And that person was in my corner the entire time I was at that fieldwork. She was someone who I bounced ideas off. For fieldwork, what we have to do is we have to do a final presentation of what we've learned or just something new that we want to show to whatever site we're at. And I gave her a run through of my entire presentation beforehand, and she was like, "This is bad." And then I revamped it, fixed it up with her help, and then we made it so much better. And not to say, of course, "this is bad" is like, an exaggeration, but she said I needed to work on it. And then looking back on it, I could have presented what she said was bad to my supervisor and it would have stayed bad. But since I knew her, she gave me that feedback. And, you know, it made all the difference. I don't want to go and present something that one person can say is bad. And like, it was a big change, and I never would have known without Jumpstart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you're creative enough, you can make any club, relevant. I mean, obviously depending on the scenario, but you can take a lot of really valuable skills and experiences out of clubs, even if they're not necessarily related, and apply them to those positions that you're applying for or you're, volunteering for. But is there such a thing as too many clubs?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. The way I don't want to say yes, so cut and dry, because I like to live in a space where there's a right answer for somebody may not be the right answer for somebody else. For me, through most of my college career, I did upwards of 4 clubs.
Wow.
Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less, but I was usually doing something. I know for some people that's not plausible. For other people, they need even more. And I think that whenever you find that for yourself, and this sounds so cliche, but you have to find your own way. But in reality, it's almost exactly that. That's what college is here for. You got to figure out how much you can handle. Things like the org fair, it does show, like, it's overwhelming, and what you make of it is really hard. It's very difficult. And if you're there and there's maybe somebody who hears this and says, I have 3 clubs and I love them all and I want to do them all, that's hard. And I won't say it's something that you just will work out with time. It's difficult, and I see you and I understand you and I feel that. And I felt that a lot. Some things did have to go, I had to contribute less of my time to them because it was just too much at some points in time. And some things just weren't always as valuable to me in that moment. And what I mean by as valuable to me is I wasn't getting out of it what I wanted. Um, for different examples, sometimes life just changes, and also with the pandemic, things like that. Running club was a little different. We did independent runs, which, as I said before, running club wasn't just about running. It was very social. It was about running together, getting a community. And so, when that may have during the pandemic, that took, a little bit of a backseat compared to some other things I did. I was actually in the IC Eat Sports Club, and that stepped up a lot in my life during the pandemic because it's online. You
Yeah.
you don't need to be in person for that. You can talk to people over the computer just like we are now, and that's what we did. And so, to make a long ramble short, um, you really need to find the time to understand what you want and what you're getting from that club based on your own environment. If your environment is not conducive to you doing a very physical club because you have an injury, it might not be the best to keep doing team rugby. Like, just a thought. But you can be a multifaceted person, and maybe you can do rugby at some point. You can say, all right, I'll show up to one practice a week and be the manager. I don't know if they do that, but that's just a big thing that you need to understand, is that your role doesn't always have to look the same in every club. You can Just being involved is usually more than enough. Um, because realistically, if you have a passion for it, um, and you can't do everything needed, you can just show up. That's a lot of thing that helps clubs, is just showing up. I feel like I've been bouncing around here, but that's kind of
Yeah.
what clubs were for me, is bouncing around a lot and then getting from it a lot of different knowledge and a lot of different skills. And it makes you more multifaceted, more well-rounded as a person once you do all of this. And overall, just like having that multiple experiences and that to draw from is, useful in the real world. Just talking further about my job now, the school year is coming to a close, so we're going to start moving into summer. And for summer, things are a lot more based on more of like a summer camp vibe, and they're looking for more activities to do. And someone was like, "Does anyone have any skills that they want to do? Anything that they just want to show kids?" And I was like, maybe we could do dance. I know some, kids are young, they could dance. And I thought about that. And I was like, maybe we do some community service, bring in Jumpstart. And then I saw earlier that they already had a running club set up. So I was like, oh, good for them. I don't need to set that up, but that's awesome. I could help if they need it. And it's just, those are different things that, in the real world, it's very helpful to have that, just any experience you can bring in. Maybe every job isn't as open as working with kids, where you can just say, hey, I'm just going to give them an idea and they're going to work with it. But I like to think that any job, you can twist your own spin on it and add something that you enjoy. And if you're not having that capacity, I think you should look inward a little bit and say, how can I? And your mind might be a little rigid and say, oh, I work in this field where I have to do this because I work 9 to 5 and this is my. And I think maybe just open up a little bit. It's hard to say that, I don't have all the experience to say that, but I would like to say that you should look for that. You should at least try, because otherwise you're just working a job that is just for money, and that's fine. You can make your money, but enjoy yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So in bouncing around all these clubs, there's so many to choose from, and yes, it is very possible to do too many clubs. Are there any clubs or organizations or types of clubs or organizations that lend themselves particularly well to furthering your professional development? Are there clubs to look for if you're like, I'm looking for a club that's going to look really good, that's going to give me a lot of skills? Are there any types that lend themselves more to that than others?
That's a good question. That's a real I'm gonna quote so many teachers probably here. It depends. It depends on where you are in your life, what your major is, what you want to do, if you want to stick with that. Um, I know I've seen a lot of clubs that are there for professional development. Like for me, when I did the DEI committee, that is essentially professional development as an OT, because you need to have those skills of DEI as an OT, because if you don't, you can offend a client, you can mess up. That's huge. I've seen people, there's, I believe it's called DKA. I've heard that's a great club for professional development. I've seen people in film really flourish from that. And I know that most clubs that are based in a major do lend themselves to some professional development. Um, while those clubs may not always be the most fun thing for some people, because they usually are more serious and they're more based on that development. But if you're trying to develop your career, you have to be serious and you have to understand that you have to commit like that. You can't. I have seen some people come to our ICOT, like the general like OT club that we had, and they wanted to be part of it, but they were there to have fun and just fun. And I think that that's fine. But as we try to have serious conversations about like, what you need to do as an OT in order to address these hard topics that, I'm not going to get into because not everybody here's an OT. You could see that it's like the membership dropped in some ways. And it's like, it's hard to see that because, we can't have every meeting be, all right, let's have a pizza party, which is good to have those things. But I mean, maybe I'll retract that. Maybe some clubs you need to have both. Maybe you need to, have that, say, let's have a pizza party to bring them in. And then when we're having this pizza party, now we'll have our heavy conversation. But um, I do think in terms of answering your question about clubs that lend themselves to professional development, when you focus on what your goal is of what your club needs to be, like, then that's where you find your professional development. Because for the IC esports club that I was a part of, one of our members, this was his professional development for him, because later on he moved towards it and he has a job working with a major video game company, and that is huge, and he's making money now and doing what he loved. And not only was he what he loved, but like it was something that he was so passionate about. And it, again, it depends on who you are and what you're doing. um for me, I had some clubs that, I thought maybe this could be something I take into a more professional way. And then I thought about it, I was like, maybe not. I'm not going to run for my career. I'm not going to do running club as my, career. But some people might be taking it that far from running club. But running club's a little weird example, because if you're running that hard, you should be on the track team. But that yeah, in terms of, I feel like I kind of answered your question
Yeah.
mostly, is that you kind of have to find your path, and that one is a bit harder if you're not doing your career in one of those clubs that are based in your major. But you can definitely find it. You can definitely find it.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we are in the last couple minutes here before we close out the episode. Are there any quick final thoughts or pieces of advice that you have for our listeners?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I think everyone should do a club. There's no reason see not to. Of course, you have your own life. You don't have to do a club if you don't want to, but I think you should. There's Ithaca, if you're at Ithaca especially, because Ithaca has such wide variety of clubs. I've seen clubs from like Quidditch to like Nerf and zombies, and to the ones I love, like I see Unbound, Running Club, the esports, the DEI committee at OT. Like there's so many wonderful clubs. And not only if you're in the club just to have fun, awesome. you will still get those skills that you can use professionally, regardless of if you're trying to or not. Because any club you go to, you have to communicate with people. Important skill you can put on your resume there. Any club that you go into, you have to show a little bit of teamwork, creativity, all great skills you can put on your resume. And if you're and again, if you're really trying to make it like your goal to use this club for your career, again, just put your head to the grindstone, look to that club that aligns with your focus, and go as hard as you can. You'll have fun doing it.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Been great to have you. And folks at home, you do not have to wait for our next episode to get career guidance. You can visit Drop-In Hours every weekday from 11 to 2 in Muller Faculty Center 101. I'm Lukas Kauffman, and this is Career Corner.